Alright, well in this video I wanted to talk about what I like about Plants vs. Zombies and how it helped me improve my critical thinking skills. And the main reason that I wanted to make this video is because I rate Plants vs. Zombies as my second favorite childhood game. I had already mentioned in a previous video that my favorite childhood game is Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door, but I rate Plants vs. Zombies as my number 2 favorite childhood game, and I actually plan on at some point in the future making a video about what I like about Minecraft and how it helped me nurture my creativity skills. And I rate Minecraft as my number 3 favorite childhood game. But back to talking about Plants vs. Zombies, to my knowledge, it was my first tower defense game, and so I liked that it had different tiles that you could place your plants in, and the zombies would be walking onto the environment either in the form of your front yard, your backyard, or your roof. And so you would place plants on the tiles, and some plants would attack zombies, some would do certain unique things, others would contribute in a more passive way, such as sunflowers giving you sun, so that you could actually use that sun as currency to be able to place more plants. And so I really liked how that was set up because it was very simple for me. It was very easy. It was organized. It allowed me to organize things with my plants that I had placed in different rows, and I would make my strategies accordingly. And so I liked that there was that form of progression with unlocking new plants over time, as well as getting encounters with new zombies that you haven't encountered before. And I liked that over time, throughout the levels, it would slowly get more difficult, and that there would be new plants that oftentimes would work really well against whatever new zombie was being introduced in the next level. And so you'd unlock a new plant after completing one level, but then that next level would usually involve introducing a new type of zombie that plant that you had just earned from your previous level would be effective against that new type of zombie. However, in most cases, that plant that was made specifically for countering that new type of zombie wasn't always necessary to use against it. And I liked that I found ways around using certain types of plants, and I liked that freedom with my strategies, that I was able to figure out strategies to where I didn't have to use certain things. And sometimes I was able to come up with strategies where something that I previously didn't have much of a use for, I was able to actually have a use for. And I enjoyed those kind of things. I like to figure them out in my mind like I was working out some sort of puzzle. I liked that I was able to be creative with it. I liked that I was able to figure out how to complete a lot of the challenges that were available to do in the game, usually in the form of achievements and mini games. And so I even got to learn strategies by watching videos about them online, and then I modified them and made them to my liking, and I really liked that I was able to have a lot of freedom with my creativity and coming up with strategies, and that there was a lot of possibilities of things I could do with the game. And so that, combined with me getting enjoyment out of the soundtrack, especially the song at the end of the game, and for anybody that hasn't played the game, I don't want to spoil it. I'm just going to say that the music at the end of the game, I liked it a lot, and I imagine a lot of people would as well. And the boss fight at the end of the game, I don't want to say much about it because I don't want to spoil it, but I gotta say that boss fight was very fun, and I replayed it a lot. And I like how the boss fight seemed to make it to where pretty much just about everything else you've learned from the game doesn't really seem to apply in the same way in the boss level. And so you've got to think fast and choose what you do with what you're provided wisely. And so with the variety of different things you can do in the main game, as well as the variety of different things you can do with any side content, such as mini games or other activities, there was a lot being offered, and not just in the PC version. There were actually multiple versions of the game that I had played and beaten. I haven't played every single version, but as far as I know, I've played all the versions that had any major difference to them. And by major difference, I mean certain things missing from a version or certain exclusive things to a version. And so I had played the PC version first. That version seemed to have the most content to it. That version seemed to have things that a lot of the other versions were lacking. Then I had played the DS version, the Xbox 360 version, and the mobile version for Android. And so I had noticed with those other three versions that there were things missing, as well as some exclusives. And so despite that, even though it was disappointing to have certain things missing from those versions, I was still able to enjoy those games, and I was still able to, at different points in time, be able to pick back up on those games and get enjoyment out of them. So I had pretty much, at some point in time, beaten the PC version and did pretty much whatever I had wanted to do in it. I had beaten all the content that was available to me, as far as I know. And at different points in time, I moved on to different versions once I had found out about them and once it was available for me. That way I could get back into the game at different points in time and get more out of it. And so I had done that instead of really getting into any sequels, because the sequels were not quite to my liking. They didn't have that same style that the first game had, except for Plants vs. Zombies 2, of course, but I didn't like that the way it was set up. I don't really remember that well, but I do remember that I just didn't really like it. It was a lot more difficult, and I had a lot of trouble with it because even though it was similar enough to the first game to be appealing to me, it was also different enough that I had difficulties with it, and it just didn't feel the same, and it didn't have things quite like the first game to where I would have really been able to like it. However, I did like the concept of it. I liked that there was a lot of new things in it, and at some point in the future I may come back to that and actually try to beat it. But as of now, I haven't really played much of Plants vs. Zombies outside of the first game. I have played a little bit of the first and second Garden Warfare, and I own the Battle for Neighborville, but haven't actually played it yet. But anyways, Plants vs. Zombies for the PC, that was actually released in 2009 by PopCap Games, but I know that at some point PopCap Games was purchased by EA, and I'm not really sure how I feel about EA. I've heard things that I'm not sure about what's actually true about them. However, I do know that I'm not a super big fan of Garden Warfare. It was okay, but I'm more into the original style that Plants vs. Zombies was made in. And I don't blame EA for changing it. I understand why they did, and I actually find that to be a good thing, that they tried something new and that a lot of people were able to like it. It's just not something that I personally am super into. I've played a little bit of it and was able to get some enjoyment of it. It just didn't have the same feel as the original Plants vs. Zombies, and so I wasn't really able to get that much into it. But anyways, the original Plants vs. Zombies, it was a game that I played a lot during my childhood, and Plants vs. Zombies isn't actually the only game made by PopCap that I was able to enjoy. I was able to enjoy Bejeweled as well. And so I really liked both of those games and played them a lot as a kid. But anyways, I noticed that my phone is actually about to die, so I do need to end this video soon. I'd say that's convenient timing because I actually ran out of things to say for the most part. But anyways, I just want to wrap this up by saying that Plants vs. Zombies allowed me to think in a way that a lot of other games that were available to me as a kid were not able to get me to be able to think. And by that, I mean me being able to work out things like a puzzle and come up with strategies like I was able to do with Plants vs. Zombies allowed me to be able to think critically and come up with strategies easier with future video games. And by that, I mean games that I had played after I had played Plants vs. Zombies. And not only with video games, but with other things in my life as well. It was able to help me out with being able to come up with strategies with other things in my life as well. And so I'm really grateful for that. And so, yeah, that's all I have for this video. Peace.